Ash, breakfast? No time, he shouted over his shoulder, nearly tripping over the garden fence in his rush. He could feel the pit in his stomach growing, not from hunger, but from fear. Today was the day he would finally get his first Pokémon. Unfortunately, there was also the matter of the alarm clock he'd smashed in his sleep. By the time Ash skidded into view of Professor Oak's lab, he could already see the other kids walking down the road, proudly holding their new Pokeballs. Gary was in the middle of the group, flashing his trademark smirk. "You're late, Ashy boy," Gary called, spinning a Pokeball on his finger. "All the good ones are taken." Ash's stomach sank. He pushed through the heavy lab doors, his sneakers squeaking against the tile floor. Professor Oak was at his desk, writing something in a large leather-bound journal. The old man looked up slowly, his eyebrows arching. "Ah, Ash, I was beginning to think you'd decided to sleep through your future." "Sorry, Professor," Ash said, hands on his knees as he caught his breath. "Do you still have?" He trailed off, looking at the empty display stand where 3 Pokeballs should have been. Oak gave a rueful shake of his head. Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle are already with their trainers. Ash's shoulders slumped. "So, I have to wait until next year?" "Not necessarily." Oak's voice dropped, and he walked over to a cabinet in the corner. From the very back, he pulled out a single Pokeball, its surface scuffed, as though it had been through more battles than most trainers would see in a lifetime. "I do have one more, though it's not exactly a beginner's choice." Ash perked up instantly. "I'll take it." Oak hesitated, his fingers tapping the smooth surface. "This Pokémon isn't from Kanto. I found her in the Viridian Forest under unusual circumstances. She's powerful but stubborn. She doesn't trust easily, and she's been, shall we say, difficult." "I don't care," Ash said, grinning. "I can handle it." The professor gave him a long, searching look before finally pressing the Pokeball into his palm. "Don't say I didn't warn you." Ash tossed the ball into the air, and in a flash of light, the Pokémon appeared. She stood barely waist-high, her sleek blue fur catching the light. Black markings framed her crimson eyes, and the way she crossed her small clawed arms made her look more like a martial artist sizing up an opponent than a partner meeting her trainer. "A Riolu," Ash breathed, recognition dawning. He'd only ever read about them in books. "Wow." Riolu's gaze swept over him, slow and assessing. She gave a short huff and looked away. Hi," Ash said, crouching down. "I'm Ash, and I guess I'm your..." Without warning, Riolu turned her back, sat down, and began inspecting her paw as though she hadn't heard a word. Oak chuckled dryly. "Told you she was stubborn." Ash frowned, but there was a flicker of determination in his eyes. He had wanted to be a Pokémon master his whole life. He wasn't about to be intimidated by someone who barely reached his hip. The road out of Pallet Town stretched ahead, golden with dust in the warm afternoon light. Ash walked, Riolu trailing several paces behind, pointedly looking at the trees instead of her trainer. "You know," Ash called over his shoulder, "if we're going to be a team, we might as well start talking to each other." Riolu didn't respond. He sighed. "Okay, fine. I'll do the talking for both of us." They walked for nearly an hour before Ash spotted movement, a Pidgey pecking at the ground near the roadside. His heart leapt. "Our first battle." He turned to Riolu. "All right, here's the plan. Quick attack from the left, then follow up with..." Riolu was already sprinting forward, ignoring every word. "Hey!" The Pidgey took flight, spinning midair and whipping up a gust that sent Riolu tumbling back. She landed hard, shook her head, and growled. Ash ran to her side. "Are you okay? That thing's a flying type. You have to be careful." But Riolu was already on her feet, scanning the grass for a new target. Her gaze locked on a Spearow watching from a branch. "Oh, no!" Ash muttered. Riolu charged. The Spearow shrieked in outrage and dived, claws flashing. The fight was quick and brutal, but Riolu's aggression only fueled the Spearow's anger. In seconds, the small bird wheeled back and let out a piercing cry. From the treetops, a shadow fell over the road. A much larger bird, its feathers dark and eyes like molten gold, descended with a screech. Spearow. A big brother, Ash realized. His pulse quickened. Spearow's wings whipped the air into a frenzy, driving Riolu back. She fought to stand her ground, but the blows were too fast, too heavy. One sharp beak strike sent her sprawling, breathless. Without thinking, Ash sprinted forward, arms wide. The next strike hit him instead. The force knocked him to one knee, pain flaring across his side. But he stayed there, shielding Riolu with his body. "It's okay. You're okay." Riolu's wide crimson eyes locked on his face. This wasn't what humans did. They didn't take hits meant for Pokemon. They didn't bleed for them. Something shifted. She stood, stepping up beside him. Ash glanced down, breathless but smiling. "Ready to listen now?" Riolu nodded once. "All right," Ash said, voice steady. "Counter with everything you've got. Aura Sphere." He didn't know if she could even use it, but as her paws cupped together, a sphere of shimmering blue energy formed, pulsing with the strange warmth Ash had felt when he shielded her. The attack struck Firo dead center, sending the great bird reeling. Ash flung a Pokeball with all his strength. It struck, opened, and in a flash of light, clicked. Ash let out a shaky laugh. "We did it." He turned, and without thinking, wrapped Riolu in a hug. For a heartbeat, she didn't react. Then slowly, her small paws rested against his side. Rooftops of Pewter City. Ash Ketchum, still fresh-faced and full of restless energy, stepped out of the Pokemon Center with Riolu at his side. The Pokemon Center's automatic doors slid shut behind them with a soft hiss, and for a moment Ash paused, taking in the faint scent of morning dew and the quiet hum of a city waking up. Riolu's ears twitched, eyes narrowing toward the east where the silhouette of the Pokemon gym stood. It wasn't the towering, modern architecture Ash had imagined as a boy. It looked more like a sturdy fortress built of stone and determination. Ash's heart was pounding. This was where real trainers proved themselves. But before they could test their skills against Pewter's gym leader, word spread that a wandering samurai was challenging trainers in the Viridian Forest's outskirts. Riolu tilted his head in curiosity, the aura around him sparking faintly with excitement. The samurai emerged from the trees like a knight stepping out of legend, armor clinking, eyes sharp. He sent out a Pinsir, its horned head casting a fearsome shadow. The battle was fierce. Riolu darted between the bug's crushing pincers, every movement laced with desperation and focus. Fighting-type moves weren't ideal against bug types, but Riolu's aura sense let him predict Pinsir's lunges, striking at the right moment. Eventually, Pinsir fell, its body trembling from exhaustion. Ash barely had time to celebrate before Samurai released a Butterfree. Its delicate wings belied the swift, tactical strikes it unleashed. Riolu tried to keep up, but the mismatch was obvious. Ash threw out his next choice, Firo. The bird's cry split the air as it soared upward, wings slicing the sunlight. But something was wrong. Firo ignored Ash's commands entirely, circling high above while Butterfree danced effortlessly out of reach. Ash's voice grew hoarse, shouting instructions that went unheard. Despite the chaos, Samurai eventually conceded, warning Ash, "You've got strength, boy, but strength without trust is nothing. You're far from a great trainer until you can control your Pokemon." The words burned in Ash's chest. That night, in the stillness of the Pokemon Center's guest room, he sat beside Firo's Pokeball. He didn't understand why the Pokemon wouldn't listen. The next morning, Ash tried to approach Firo, not with commands, but with quiet observation. Hours passed with little progress. Firo kept its distance, wings ruffling in distrust. Then, almost without thinking, Ash closed his eyes and reached out, not with words, but with his aura. A faint hum stirred in his mind, like a distant song. For a brief, fragile moment, he understood. Firo's distrust came from past battles with careless trainers. It feared being used, not understood. Ash didn't waste the moment. "I'm not like them," he whispered. "I fight with my Pokemon, not through them." The next test came quickly. Brock, the Rock-type gym leader. Ash tried to rely on Firo, but the battle was brutal. Rock-types shrugged off flying attacks, and Firo's speed couldn't make up for its ineffective strikes. When Brock's Onix slammed into the arena floor, Ash knew he needed a new strategy. Riolu stepped forward. The fighting Pokemon's strikes rang against rock with each blow, the gym echoing with the sound of determination. When the dust settled, Riolu stood victorious, and Ash claimed his first badge. The journey pressed on through the rugged trails of Mount Moon. The cave smelled of damp stone and echoing mystery. Deep within, Ash encountered a Paras, a skittish bug-grass Pokemon whose mushroom caps glowed faintly in the darkness. The battle was short, the catch almost effortless, but Ash sensed quiet potential in Paras. Not long after, the path led to Vermillion City and its famous water gym, run by the three mermaid sisters. Their Starmie and Seal fought gracefully, the water reflecting ripples of light across the arena walls. Ash sent out Paris first, grass against water, a smart choice, but Paris struggled against their agile movements. Firo took the final round, sweeping across the pool and striking true. With 2 badges in his case and his team slowly coming together, Ash was no longer just a boy chasing adventure. The wind carried the sharp bite of the northern air, its cold fingers tugging at Ash Ketchum's jacket as he trudged along the rugged trail. Snow hadn't fallen yet, but the sky was heavy with clouds the color of steel. He had been traveling for hours, Riolu trotting at his side, the faint crunch of their boots and paws against the gravel echoing in the quiet wilderness. They were searching for a place to rest, maybe somewhere near the forest edge where wild Pokémon gathered. Ash had been looking forward to a quiet moment, a chance to share lunch with his partners. But the stillness was broken by a sharp, angry cry overhead. A large Firo swooped down, wings cutting the air like blades, its beak snapping in fury. Ash's eyes darted toward the cause of the commotion, a small Vulpix, its 6 tails curling like molten ribbons, stood over a half-eaten pile of berries that clearly didn't belong to it. The wild fox Pokémon had been helping itself to Firo's carefully gathered meal. "Vulpix, you shouldn't," Ash began, but it was too late. Firo screeched again and dove, its talons gleaming. The battle was swift and brutal. Firo's feathers seemed to blur as it moved, its speed fueled by sheer rage. Then, in a moment that made Ash's breath catch, Firo unleashed something new. A spiraling, earth-twisting strike as its beak drilled forward, cloaked in a swirl of dirt and stone. "Is that Drill Run?" Ash gasped, realizing he was witnessing the creation of a brand new move. The attack slammed into Vulpix, sending it sprawling. Despite the battle's ferocity, something in Ash's chest ached for the little fox. He knew the wild could be unforgiving. Pokémon fought to survive, even if it meant taking risks. Firo hovered above, glaring down, victorious. But Ash saw more than anger in its eyes. There was pride, a warrior's spirit. Acting quickly, he threw a Pokeball. The ball shook once, twice, click. Ash exhaled slowly, a smile tugging at his lips. "Welcome to the team, Firo." Stop was Vermillion City, home to the towering, brash gym leader, Lat Surge. The man was a giant, his voice booming across the battlefield as he sent out his Raichu. Ash led with Riolu, determination blazing in both their eyes. But the fight was one-sided from the start. Raichu's Thunderbolt crackled like a storm breaking free from the clouds. And every blow Riolu endured chipped away not just at its stamina, but at Ash's confidence. It ended with Riolu on one knee, breathing hard, before finally collapsing. Ash's first gym defeat hit harder than he expected. The referee's call was distant in his ears, drowned out by the pounding of his own heart. That night, Ash sat with Riolu under the streetlights outside the Pokémon Center. The air was still, but inside Ash's chest, frustration churned like a storm. "I'm sorry," he murmured. Riolu shook its head fiercely, eyes narrowing with resolve. It wasn't ready to quit. Not now. Not ever. That fire rekindled Ash's own. They trained relentlessly for days, and in the process, Riolu learned 2 crucial moves: Woke-Up Slap for speed and precision, and Reversal, a desperate strike that grew stronger when the battle seemed nearly lost. When Ash stepped back into the gym, the air felt charged, not just with electricity, but with something heavier: redemption. Surge smirked as the battle began. He sent out Magnemite first, but Ash countered with Vulpix. Fire met steel, and flames roared across the field, melting away the cold gleam of Magnemite's armor. Then came Raichu. Riolu took the field again, but this time its stance was lower, its gaze sharper. Thunderbolts struck, but Riolu danced through them, landing strikes like a drumbeat, steady, unyielding. Finally, with Reversal, Riolu struck with everything it had left, toppling the electric giant. Ash caught Riolu as it stumbled, and the referee's voice rang clear. "The winner is Ash Ketchum." Surge handed over the Thunder Badge with a nod that carried respect. Ash's hands trembled, not from the battle, but from the weight of the moment. Days later, Ash found himself in the largest city he had ever visited. Towers loomed overhead, their windows glowing like cold stars. This was the home of Sabrina, the infamous psychic-type gym leader. The battle was hopeless from the start. Her Kadabra moved like thought itself, instant, unstoppable. Ash felt like every move he made had been predicted before he even considered it. When he lost, it wasn't just a defeat. Sabrina's eyes, deep and unreadable, fixed on him. She smiled faintly, but it wasn't warm. "You have abilities," she said, voice low. "Not unlike mine. I think I will keep you." The world seemed to warp around him, and before he understood what was happening, he was shrunken, a doll in her grasp. But something inside him refused to be trapped. The same stubborn will that had driven Riolu flared within him. By sheer luck, and perhaps a flicker of that strange aura sense she had noticed, he escaped. An old man told him what he already suspected. To defeat Sabrina, he would need a ghost type. Ash's path took him to the Pokemon Tower. Mist clung to the ground, and shadows shifted like whispers in the dark. It was there he met Haunter, mischievous, unpredictable, but oddly kind. Through his aura sense, Ash could understand Haunter's strange humor and sly intentions. They shook on a partnership, and Ash's Pokeball clicked shut. Even with Haunter at his side, Ash wasn't ready to face Sabrina. He knew it in his bones, but he also knew this: he would return. The journey to Celadon City had been long, and Ash could feel that familiar burn in his legs after weeks of travel. His Pokemon had been training tirelessly for the upcoming gym battle, but there was still a lingering uncertainty in his heart. Erica, the Celadon gym leader, was known for her mastery of grass types. The air itself seemed to hum with the perfume of her garden, a sweet, almost dizzying fragrance that made the place feel alive. The battle began in the lush greenhouse arena, sunlight filtering through glass panels above. Ash's Fearow swooped through the air, wings slicing through drifting petals, while Erica's Pokemon stood firm like rooted trees. Fearow fought valiantly, but the tangling vines and spores slowed it down. Ash switched to Vulpix, whose flames danced like tiny stars in the humid air, yet even that spark was dulled by the persistent green tide. It wasn't until Ash brought out Paris, the quiet, overlooked Pokemon that had been with him since early days, that the tide shifted. At first, Paris seemed hopelessly outmatched, but as the battle pressed on, something inside the little mushroom crab awoke. It glowed with a fierce light, its body transforming, mushrooms blooming larger and richer on its back. Parasect emerged, a silent yet commanding presence. With new strength, it overcame Erica's final Pokemon, earning Ash the victory. Erica smiled warmly, not bitter at the loss, but genuinely impressed. Ash, chest swelling with pride, knelt down beside Parasect, running his fingers gently along its hardened shell. "You did amazing, buddy," Ash whispered, voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." The next leg of the journey was supposed to be simple, crossing a long bridge to his next destination. But fate had other plans. A sudden storm tore through the skies, the wind howling like a living thing. The bridge, slick with rain and groaning under the gale, became too dangerous to cross. Ash had no choice but to take a boat instead. That's where he encountered them for the first time: Team Rocket. The moment he stepped aboard, he could sense trouble brewing. Jesse, James, and Meowth were up to their usual schemes, prowling the decks in search of Pokemon to steal. At first, Ash tried to avoid attention, blending in with the crowd. But when he saw them corner a young trainer and snatch away their partner, something inside him snapped. The confrontation was fierce, the deck rocking beneath their feet as lightning split the horizon. Ash wasn't just battling to win, he was fighting for the trust of the trainers around him, for the safety of every Pokemon on that ship. By the time Team Rocket was sent blasting away, soaked and furious, the passengers erupted into cheers. Ash became a local hero almost overnight, but with that came an uncomfortable flood of attention. Everywhere he went on the boat, eyes followed him, whispers trailed him. It felt strange, heavy. The storm didn't end there. Days later, the skies darkened again, but this time it wasn't just weather. A massive shadow swept over the boat, accompanied by the deafening crackle of electricity. Zapdos had appeared, wings alight with power, its cry shaking the ocean itself. Panic spread among the trainers. Pokemon were called out, attacks fired desperately into the sky, but nothing seemed to faze the legendary bird. Ash, instead of joining the fray, felt a different pull in his chest. He stepped forward, rain blinding his eyes, heart pounding. He called out to Zapdos, not with an attack, but with words. His voice was raw, almost pleading, as he spoke of peace, of understanding, of the harm the fight was causing. Incredibly, the electric titan's gaze softened. With a screech that felt almost grateful, Zapdos turned and vanished into the storm clouds. The battle was over, without a single move exchanged. The attention after that was overwhelming. Ash slipped away quietly at the next port, camping alone by the ocean. There, under the orange glow of a sunset, he met a slowpoke. It stood staring at the horizon, perfectly still, perfectly content. Without resistance, it allowed Ash to capture it, as if it had been waiting for him. Not long after, Ash encountered an Eevee wandering alone. Something about it felt wrong. It was too clean, too well fed to be a wild Pokémon. Ash's instincts told him it had a trainer. He followed the clues, tracking its scent and signs until he found its owner, a grateful young man who explained that Eevee had been left there for mysterious reasons. As thanks, the man invited Ash to a special event hosted by him and his brothers, an evolution party. The celebration was a vibrant whirlwind of music, laughter, and evolving Pokémon. As the night went on, the brothers presented Ash with a Firestone. Vulpix's eyes sparkled at the sight, her tails flicking eagerly. Ash knelt down. "You've been amazing, Vulpix. If you want this, I'll support you." In a burst of light, Vulpix became Ninetales, elegant, radiant, and more graceful than Ash could have imagined. The air in Fuchsia City Gym was thick with tension, the scent of incense curling through the rafters. Ash Ketchum stood on the battlefield, the polished wooden floor creaking beneath his sneakers. Across from him, Koga, the gym leader and master of poisons, stood motionless, his eyes half closed like a meditating ninja. The faint glimmer of a smile touched his lips. "3 Pokémon each," Koga said calmly. "Let us see if you can overcome the shadow." Ash took a deep breath. He had done his homework. He knew poison types would be useless against Pokémon with certain immunities, so he had chosen carefully. "Go, Ninetales," Ash called, tossing the first Pokeball into the air. The fire type emerged in a swirl of golden flames, its 9 tails flowing like silk in the light. Koga countered with a venomous Ariados, its beady eyes gleaming as strands of sticky web shot forward. The battle was quick but fierce. Ninetales weaved through traps, flames burning through silken threads until Ariados collapsed. But Koga wasn't rattled. "Muck, your turn." The sludge Pokémon oozed onto the field, its toxic form shimmering under the lights. Ash swapped Ninetales for Slowpoke, knowing psychic power could cut through poison. Muck lunged, but Slowpoke, slow, steady, and surprisingly clever, landed a decisive confusion that turned the tide. The last fight was a clash of wits. Koga's Golbat darted through the air like a streak of shadow, but Ash's Haunter proved faster, phasing through attacks and landing a final hypnosis that left Golbat spiraling to the floor. The badge was Ash's, and yet, this wasn't the victory he was truly after. The next morning, Ash set out for Saffron City. His hands clenched the straps of his backpack as he thought of the next challenge, Sabrina, the psychic-type gym leader. Everyone had warned him. She was unlike any opponent he'd faced. Her skill with psychic Pokémon was legendary, but it was her rumored telepathic abilities, powers she herself possessed, that made challengers hesitate. When Ash finally stood before her, he felt the truth of those rumors. Sabrina didn't just look at him, she looked into him. Her gaze was sharp, almost painful, as though she could see every doubt he'd ever had. The battle began. Ash led with Parasect, knowing bug types had a natural advantage over psychic types. But Sabrina's Hypno moved like it could predict every step. Hypnosis left Parasect vulnerable, and a psychic attack knocked it out cold. Next came Haunter. Faster, unpredictable, a ghost who could slip between worlds. For a moment, Ash thought he had the upper hand, until Sabrina's Mr. Mime erected a barrier so precise it was like hitting solid steel. One well-placed Psybeam ended it. Both trainers were down to their final Pokémon. Sabrina's last choice was Alakazam, its spoons glowing faintly with psychic energy. Ash froze. Alakazam was on a different level entirely, fast, precise, and devastating. He could feel the knot of fear in his stomach. "I can't win this," he thought. "I'm just going to lose again." But then, something stirred. A voice, not words exactly, but a feeling, echoed in his mind. His Riolu, still in its Pokeball, was calling out to him, urging him not to quit. The bond between them flared like a warm light in the cold darkness of his thoughts. Ash smiled, his confidence returning. "Riolu, let's go." The battle that followed was brutal. Riolu darted around Alakazam's psychic attacks, but each hit that landed sent him staggering. Ash shouted encouragement, calling out attacks with a rhythm that matched Riolu's movements. It was more than commands, it was synchronization. They were moving as one. Then, in the heat of the fight, something incredible happened. A surge of light enveloped Riolu, his form stretching and growing. Ash's eyes widened. "Lucario," he whispered. The newly evolved Pokémon opened his eyes, the aura around him crackling like a storm. For the first time, Lucario unleashed a perfect aura sphere, the blue energy swirling with the weight of their shared determination. It struck Alakazam with a force that shattered the psychic's focus, sending it to the floor. The referee's voice rang out, "Winner, Ash Ketchum." Ash raised his fist in triumph, but then noticed something he didn't expect. Sabrina wasn't angry, she was crying. I guess you'll move on now," she said softly, "just like the others." Ash frowned. "What do you mean?" "No one stays," she whispered. "Not when they find out what I am, a freak, a girl with powers no one understands. Pokémon are the only friends I've ever had." Ash hesitated. He understood now. Her strength came from the same place as her loneliness, and he knew that feeling. People had doubted him his whole journey. Without a word, he stepped forward and hugged her. Sabrina stiffened at first, then slowly relaxed. "You're not a freak," Ash said firmly. "You're amazing, and maybe you could teach me. I think I might have a little of what you have. Lucario and I, we feel each other's thoughts sometimes." Sabrina blinked. Then for the first time she smiled. From that day forward, Sabrina became more than a gym leader in Ash's memory. She became a mentor. She taught him to focus, to listen beyond words, and to strengthen his bond with Lucario until it was unbreakable. Ash didn't just grow stronger as a trainer, he grew wiser, more empathetic, and certain that true strength came from understanding. Ash adjusted his new backpack strap. New clothes from Professor Oak, a fresh start. 2 badges stood between him and the Kanto League. His first stop, Cinnabar Island. The scent of salt and sulfur hung in the air, the volcano looming like a sleeping giant. Blaine greeted him with a sly grin and a riddle. Ash's mind worked hard, but riddles weren't his strength, battles were. The match was fierce. Hunter the Haunter darted with mischievous speed. Ninetales danced like living fire, but it was Slowpoke, often underestimated, that turned the tide. Blaine's final Pokémon, a mighty Magmar, radiated heat like a mirage. In desperation, Ash called on Slowpoke, whose tail suddenly hosted a Shelter. The evolution into Slowbro burst like dawn's light. With new strength, Slowbro's surf crashed over Magmar, extinguishing the threat. Blaine handed over the Volcano badge with rare respect. 7 badges down, 1 to go. The road to Vermillion City felt heavy with memories. Giovanni awaited, a gym leader cloaked in shadow, the ruthless leader of Team Rocket. The 6-on-6 battle was brutal. Giovanni's style was cold and relentless. One by one, his Pokémon fell until only one remained, a sleek, mysterious creature unknown to any Pokédex. Its gaze wasn't on Ash, but on Lucario, mesmerized by their bond. For a moment, battle ceased. The creature softened, turned away, leaving Giovanni to send out his massive Rhydon. Lucario, battered but unyielding, faced Rhydon's relentless charge. Their synchronized movements spoke of shared resolve. In a final clash, Lucario's aura sphere collided with Rhydon's horn. The ground shook. When dust cleared, Lucario stood victorious. Ash had won. But Giovanni was gone. No farewell, no explanation. A month passed in rumors. Then came a formal invitation. The strongest trainers in Kanto were summoned to a mysterious tournament. The host was unknown until Ash realized it was Mewtwo. No escape this time. The tournament was a trap, a gathering for Mewtwo's scrutiny. The battle was more than attacks. It was a war of wills. Ash reached out with his aura, trying to bridge human and Pokémon. At first, Mewtwo's mind was a fortress of pain and distrust. But Ash persisted, showing memories of humans who fought for Pokémon, not against them. Lucario's trust, bonds forged in hardship. Slowly, Mewtwo's bitterness faded into cautious understanding. By the end, Mewtwo was no enemy. Ash had turned tragedy into fragile peace. Years passed. Ash's aura deepened, guiding him through trials no map could chart. Stories spread of the young man who could sense the heartbeat of the world, standing between chaos and harmony.